not from Oklahoma. I'm not Native American. I'm not with law enforcement. I don't have any connection to the families of the murders. If you don't know what I'm talking about the 1977 Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. In 1977, the boogeyman was real for 3 young girls who were brutally murdered sometime in the middle of the night at Camp Scott in Locust Grove, Oklahoma, way at a Girl Scout camp. The camp was called Camp Scott. This is not a true crime channel. I mainly do urban legends and paranormal stuff, but there's more to this story than meets the eye. What has drawn me to this case? Well, besides being the father of a 9-year-old Girl Scout, I was actually drawn to this case for a couple of reasons. Number one, I was just hiking one day, and I was out with my camera, and I found a camp that was abandoned, and I did some research about it later. I did some videos, some photos, I came home, and I wanted to find out why camps closed down and were abandoned. Like, why did that happen? Now, this is in Southern California, but I wanted to know and I wanted to understand. Sometimes they just lose their funding for whatever reason, or a lot of times something becomes unsafe in the area, any number of things. Sometimes there's something nefarious like murder. Now, murder is a very rare occurrence in any kind of a campground, especially national parks. Are they underreported? Maybe, but to give you an idea, it's kind of about 1 in a million. In that 1 in a million, it's hardly ever wildlife, like a bear or something like that. It's usually like drowning, and it's usually an adult male that this happens to. I'm just telling you the statistics. In May of 1996, Julie Williams and Laura Winans were the exception to the rule. They went into the Shenandoah National Park and never returned. They were later found that they had been bound, gagged, and their throats slit. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is not to scare you from going camping, because I really think camping is a pretty damn safe thing, except for like maybe insect bites and stuff like that. But as far as being murdered, it really doesn't happen that much, like hardly ever. But there was a Daryl David Rice that was arrested for the murder. He went on trial and he eventually got acquitted. He did very little time in jail. Some people had seen him in 2014 and the police said, he's not a wanted man. There's nothing we can do. So where is Mr. Rice these days? Mr. Rice is in Durango, Colorado somewhere. Well, at least that's the last place he was seen. So the only reason I'm telling you this is because it's really one of the very few things I can find. There was a Girl Scout murder years ago in the 50s or 60s. But back to the Girl Scout murders in 1977. There's recently been a Hulu documentary, and it was hosted by Kristen Chenoweth, who was the star of Wicked and a bunch of other things. She's a big actress and singer. She's very talented. And they probably selected her because she's from the area. She's from Locust Grove, Oklahoma. Apparently, she wanted to go to that camp that year and was sick, and her mom wouldn't let her go. I really believe that in a lot of ways, this documentary kind of conjured up more questions than answers. And a lot of people might be saying, why are you saying that? Because it really looked like Gene Leroy Hart really was the perpetrator. I agree with you. I think Gene Leroy Hart absolutely was at the scene of that crime. His DNA was there, even though DNA in 1977 is not what it is today. And that has given rise to a lot of questions. How do we know for a fact that it was him? There were a lot of things in common with this crime that Hart committed and the crime that he had committed earlier in 1966, I think it was. He took 2 women at gunpoint who were pregnant, by the way, and raped them. They were bound very similar way. It was almost identical. And when you have somebody with almost the exact same MO in a very close spot and their DNA more or less matches, when I say more or less, I mean it just wasn't as exacting as it is today. But it sounds to me pretty much like it was Hart. But I personally believe there was another person involved. Now, I went to the networks 3 years ago trying to get this story done. Even though I don't do true crime, I was willing to do it as true crime. They were all afraid of the sensitive nature of children being involved. And I get that. And I thought this documentary handled it very well. It didn't go into all the grisly details. I thought Kristen Chenoweth handled it very well. But there are a lot of stones that have not been turned. I think a lot of people were surprised that there was a fourth girl that was supposed to be in the tent that night that got moved to another unit. She was interviewed, but not in the documentary. We're surprised that she wasn't interviewed. There's a lot of other girls that have not been interviewed. That should have been, that were in that camp that night, that heard things. There were girls that said that they saw 3 flashlights and not just one. They did recover 1 flashlight from the crime scene and had been covered with a garbage bag and duct taped, and then there was a hole poked in it to kind of dim the light. We didn't have these sophisticated flashlights. You can click multiple times and get different intensities as we do now. It was a smudge or two on the flashlight, but it wasn't a verifiable fingerprint according to ballistics. Now, a lot of people said a lot of this evidence was planted, that the sheriff at that time really had it in for Hart. The only thing that's questionable to me with that, for one thing, I don't think a police officer, even a very crooked one, would want to get the wrong guy and let the right guy out and running around able to kill more children, unless he was involved. I just don't see it. I think it's a little far-fetched. However, the sheriff had some photos that were supposedly in his desk drawer that people saw, and these photos were the 2 women that had been raped in 1966, and somehow they found these pictures in a cave that they believed Hart had occupied shortly after the murders. Now, why would Hart bring these photos to this cave and leave them there? What's in the mind of a killer or a crazy person like that? I don't know. Is it possible? Yeah, sure, it's possible. But that part's odd. Maybe the police officer or the sheriff pretty much knew it was Hart and just wanted more evidence just so he could just really nail him. I don't know. Sheriff Mike Reed is the current sheriff in that township now, and I think he did a fantastic job looking into this case. He spent 9 years on it. He went to some FBI agents, I think there was 3 of them or so, got their opinions way before he even met with them. And they unequivocally thought that it was Gene Leroy Hart. They thought he acted alone. Again, I still don't think he did. So what do I want to do about it? What does a drummer from a rock band want to do about it? Maybe I have no business doing anything about it. But this is a paranormal, urban legend tripping channel, and I would like to go there with a medium. I am not skilled in that way. That is not my thing, but I would like to take somebody I think is really good, and do a paranormal investigation. Maybe get some of these questions answered, and some people might be saying, well, why? We have evidence. A lot of evidence may not be there, and the other part of it is that a lot of that evidence, especially the DNA, was highly degraded. It's 45 years after the crime. So that's what I would like to do. I was talking to Cindy Keza, medium Cindy, as a lot of people call her, and she said, look, some people, when they die as kids, they grow up on the other side. So we could be talking to women, not me, her, if I could get her to go. I just think it would be maybe super compelling. I don't know. There's recently been a mass murder of children in the state of Texas, and my heart goes out to those families. And you might think, why am I not doing something on that? The thing that interests me about this case, the Girl Scout murders, it is very personal. Like, what drives somebody to do this? But there's more to this story. There's so many layers, and if you watch the videos that I did about it, and I'll make a link to those videos, you will find that there's many layers of even possibly supernatural things at work here. For one thing, there was medicine men involved, which are some Native American lore, that Hart was shape-shifting at the time. And it's why he eluded authorities for so long. I think it was 10 months that he eluded authorities. He died in prison 2 months after he was acquitted from a heart attack. Now, he ran through all that crazy forest, right, and was able to elude law enforcement. But yet he goes in the prison yard and lifts some weights and dies from a heart attack. It's timing, I guess. Something's weird about that. There's a lot of loose ends. Could just all be serendipitous. Who knows? The other part of this that interests me is this says so much about our judicial system. Hart was American Indian. And there was a lot of prejudice at that time, and still is, towards American Indians and American Indians towards white people. A lot of tension, understandably so. It's over 200 years of oppression. It was almost like the OJ case. So you have like this OJ case where it's like they just don't want the Indian guy to be guilty. And then you have like three little girls, almost like JonBenet Ramsey. I mean, none of these girls were in beauty pageants, I don't think. But clearly you have to draw comparisons to kind of both cases, OJ and JonBenet Ramsey, because it's unsolved, they're kids, and there was a lot of prejudice at stake, and that may have been the reason. So maybe this does say a lot about our society and our culture, really. I plan on going there this summer on the Poison Tour. I want to see for myself. I need to get permission to go on the land. I don't have a big budget like Hulu or anybody. I'm just a lowly YouTuber here. So hopefully they'll grant me access. I know other YouTubers have gone on that property. So I want to check it out. I think it'll be painful to walk those same grounds that those poor kids walked. That camp has been closed for 45 years. The day after these murders happened, it went dark, and that was it. It never reopened. Anyway, if you want to find out more about the Camp Scott murders or Oklahoma Girl Scout murders, whatever you want to call it, please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so that you're notified when I do upload new videos. Because I'll be uploading a lot of videos, not just about this, but out on tour doing other things and riding motorcycles and doing fun things too. So for now, take care of each other and keep rock alive.